Hey guys, Rules for Rebels here with Side Hustle Tuesdays, episode 21. Today's story is actually going to be about storytelling itself and how important storytelling is to business and especially building a brand. Many of the great businesses today have a great story behind them or a great founder story. Once upon a time is probably the most popular literary term of all time. We all know what it means. We all know when we hear it that we're about to hear a story. And stories are very powerful and we should use them in building a business and especially when building a brand. So for those of you guys who watch my videos regularly, you may remember a video I did a while back about Shopify About Us pages. I'll link to it in the description box below. The point of the video was that I was seeing a lot of new e-commerce sellers setting up terrible About Us pages. Rather than telling a story, rather than telling their story, they were trying to act all big and corporate, saying things like, "We are the leading seller of camping knives and tactical gear, made from the highest quality materials, blah, 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 blah." When in reality, I know you're running an AliExpress dropshipping store out of your basement, you're not the largest anything. In the video, I showed a few great examples of About Us pages and how they told the story of the founding of their brand, oftentimes incorporating pictures and videos of their journey along the way, their first workspace, etc. So myself and your customers would much rather see you being genuine and telling your story. Even if that story is, "Hey, I'm David, I'm new to e-commerce, I'm still figuring things out, I have a love of camping, I'm out camping almost every weekend, and I noticed that the camping gear I bought wasn't always good quality stuff." And when you're out camping in the middle of nowhere and running to the corner store to replace a faulty item isn't an option, it's even more important to have quality camping goods. It's because of that that I decided to open my own e-commerce camping store and make sure I supply only the highest quality items which I have personally used and tested. Now that's a story that's a story that people can relate to. That's something that people can actually get behind. Now, Gary Vee and Tai Lopez are probably two of the greatest storytellers, which is why they are also two of the biggest YouTube and social media personalities out there. And in just a second, I'm going to play you guys a brief clip of Gary Vee talking about storytelling in relation to building a brand.
So when I think about how storytelling impacted the way I built a business, the wine business is really where I can tell that story. When a winemaker left an Opus One or a Camus and started their own brand, those wines didn't sell very well. They didn't have ratings. They were expensive because they came from a high-end brand and they were starting a high-end brand. But I took it as an opportunity. I told the story. This is the winemaker from the wine that is getting the best scores in the world. That's $100. He has just left and started his own brand with his name on it. And it's selling for half the price. Buy it now before it becomes this. That becomes a very compelling story because it was true.
Okay, so now we've covered that. Let's get into today's story. David Vin was a Canadian. While David was in Amsterdam, he fell in love with Nepaj from Kathmandu, Nepal. David and Nepaj fell in love and decided to get married. They wanted to get married in Nepaj's home country of Nepal. So for the wedding, it was David's first trip to Nepal. David loved everything about it. He loved the mountains, he loved the people, he loved the culture. He also discovered that a large portion of the world's cashmere comes from Nepal. You know, it's kind of funny. Whenever I hear cashmere, I always think of that funny Seinfeld episode where George gives Elaine and later his office cleaner that cashmere sweater that he bought on discount because of the red dot. But getting back to the story. Anyhow, David knew how much cashmere cost back home in Canada, and he was surprised to see how cheap it was in Nepal. David and Nepaj decided they would start a clothing company selling cashmere and importing it back home and across the world. Now, cashmere is already popular. It's kind of a luxury item. People back home in Canada and in the States know what it is, so there's no having to educate your consumer base or your customers. David and Nepaj met with some local suppliers. They finally chose one who worked putting a lot of care into their work and a lot of attention to detail. And for their first order, they ordered 100 shawls for about $2,000. They called their company Koala Cashmere, and shortly after getting home, they were featured in a citywide newspaper about the couple who traveled to Nepal for a wedding and came home with a cashmere company. In addition to providing quality shawls and sweaters, they were also trying to support the community. In Nepal, education is severely underfunded, especially for girls, and David and Nepaj decided to donate 5% of all proceeds to setting up schools in Nepal. It was a compelling story. A couple goes to Nepal to get married. They come home with a cashmere company, and not only that, but their cashmere company supports local trade and is helping the community. It's a great story. They wound up selling out of shawls and had a profit of $5,000 from their $2,000 investment. They put all that money back into the business and ordered more shawls. Now, almost all of their sales and traffic today come from organic search results and referrals. They recently went through a bit of a rebranding process and even added a few more product lines to their catalog. So what can we learn from this story? It's a shining example of the power of storytelling. What if the story I told you was this? Hey, this guy wanted to make money, so he imported some shawls to Canada. You know, nothing wrong with that, but it's kind of boring on its own. No hook, no depth, no reason to care. Now consider the details of the story that we told. David fell in love. He traveled for his wedding and honeymoon. He got the idea while exploring Nepal in the mountains with his wife, Nepal. It's a hustle, but it also benefits a local school children. So if you're a customer, you know their product is fair trade and responsibly sourced, and you know that you're helping school kids by purchasing the shawls from David. Now, as I told you, the first order sold out quickly, largely in part because of the local media feature. Without that backstory and the details, it's far less likely the newspaper would have cared to do the story and probably wouldn't have written about them. The message of today's hustle is that you too need a story. What's your story? What's your brand story? What's your founder story? I'll share another quick story before we go. So my girlfriend recently told me about this dude who's a potter. His name's Joel. I forget his last name. Joel something pottery. He makes mugs, coffee mugs, with an old school kick wheel, not an electric or motorized pottery wheel. Not only is it a lot more work doing it this way, but it's also kind of fun to watch as well. The guy's name is Joel. He sells these cosmic mugs, basically mugs that he paints to look like the solar system that he's thrown himself. And they sell for like $40 to $60 per coffee mug, which is pretty expensive already. But if you want one of his specialty mugs, you know, get ready to shell out $140, $200, $250. The reason he's so popular and the reason he's able to sell these mugs is because of the story. He does a lot of YouTube Live and Facebook Live videos where he shows himself actually working on the kick wheel. His customers can actually see him work and see him create his products, and you actually see him kicking the kick wheel and sweating while he does it. That's his story. It really allows you to connect with him, and as kind of a side note, he holds the Guinness record for the most bowls thrown within, I don't know, a minute or 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, and that's something that he features on his website and online shop as well. So basically, this all adds to the guy's story, and this is what allows him to sell his mugs for $40 or $60 or more, when most people would just run to, you know, Starbucks or Target and get a mug for $5 or $10.
Are you tired of using a boring coffee mug? Now you can use something better. Introducing Cosmic Mugs, art that lets you taste the universe every day. My name's Joel Cherico, and I make pottery. Today, most coffee mugs are made by machines. Sure, you could buy a factory-made mug for 10 or 20 bucks, or you can drink from a one-of-a-kind piece of artwork that was handmade by a potter. My glazed colors are inspired by images of cosmic objects out in space.
The moral of the story is this. Storytelling is essentially the backbone of society in all of our lives. Everything from the Bible, to fairy tales, to jokes, to histories, to stories of our own family. What is your story? What is your brand story? And how can you use that to your advantage to either create a buzz, to better connect with your customers, or to make your customers want to support you? Anyhow, guys, that's it. That's today's story. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you were inspired. If you're an entrepreneur, I want you to figure out what's your story. And if you have a story, drop a comment in the comment section below and tell us about your story, your company story. Until next time, guys, Rules for Rebels, signing off.